When you're feeling pressured, it's easy to overlook things, especially when you've set certain limits for yourself. Sometimes it feels like there's no way to escape. My brain doesn't simply function, and all I have is a screen in front of me and perpetual mouse clicks in my head. My brain doesn't simply function, and all I have is a screen in front of me and perpetual mouse clicks in my head. I couldn't answer the phone call because I had a lot of work to do. I had to get the file ready for uploading by tomorrow morning. That night, I almost lost track of who I was. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and the file I was working on was far from being finished. I was so engrossed in my work that I lost track of time. Suddenly, I snapped out of it and realized I was starving. I could barely stand on my desk, so I decided to go to the fridge for a bite. I have this small apartment on 7th floor, and at this hour, it felt eerily deserted, almost like a prison cell. The silence was overwhelming, broken only by the ticking of a clock on the wall. I had no appetite, but I knew I couldn't continue like this. I couldn't even remember the last time I had eaten something. Returning to my desk, I resumed working, though my nerves were frayed and I felt like I could pass out at any moment. It was maddening. Suddenly, the power went out, plunging the entire place into pitch black darkness. Silence shed its shadow over everything. Then, out of nowhere, the phone began to ring. Weird. It was a call from abroad. It was unusual, because I didn't know anyone down in that country. Strange. Thoughts were consuming me. I didn't have any relationship with anyone in this town, so it couldn't be a prank. Despite my fear, I knew I had to figure out what was going on. So, I cautiously went to the entrance door and opened it. The hallway outside was dimly lit, and it appeared that only my apartment was affected by the power outage. Then, my phone rang again, right in my hand this time. It was another call from an unfamiliar international number. I was completely puzzled and desperately needed an explanation. It wouldn't bother if I pick up the phone, just to hear the voice behind it. out. What was happening? It was a man with his scroll voice saying some strange summons in a language I've never heard before. Imagine being all alone in complete darkness. It was incredibly frightening. I can't even begin to describe the level of fear I experienced in that moment. I was struck by a massive shock and couldn't even respond to the illogical explanations racing through my head. I looked around in total confusion, unable to do anything. I even shouted a few times, thinking it might be a prank, but it was fruitless. Things were spiraling out of my hands. Suddenly, I heard someone coming down the stairs from above. The footsteps were incredibly calm. I was on the edge, and in that moment, every noise seemed to be amplified in my head, making everything even more terrifying. It was right behind the door. I couldn't move an inch from where I was. Time seemed to have frozen, and this never-ending night was driving me to the brink of insanity. I checked my phone again and noticed a lot of missed calls from various numbers. Going downstairs wasn't an option. I preferred to stay locked inside, where I had some control on things. The only option I had left was to wait until morning, which felt like an eternity. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't bear this situation any longer. So I decided to call someone for help. As I was calling Jimmy, one of my friends who I knew wouldn't judge me for this strange interruption, the power suddenly came back on. Fortunately, Jimmy picked up the phone. I was utterly confused, stumbling over my words as I briefly explained the bizarre situation. I asked if he could come over because I was completely lost and terrified. That night was a one-time event, and it never happened again in months that followed. Even now, I can't quite make sense of it. Until this day, I have so many questions, but no answers.